Hi, today we are going to start looking into the lesson for chapter 6. I just want to show you really quick. If you did print out the guided notes, then you'll see this is the first page. For those that didn't, that's fine. I just want to let you know really quick what the chapter is all about. So chapter 6 is all about systems of equations and inequalities. And how I teach, I like to break everything up into specific learning targets. So in this particular chapter, there are 3 learning targets. There is a learning target where students will be able to analyze systems. There's a learning target where students will be able to solve systems of equations by any method. And the third and final learning target is that students will be able to solve word problems involving systems of equations. So the first lesson that we're going to be talking about today is really not a new lesson. It is just us reviewing how to graph. So let's review the coordinate plane and how to plot some points really quick. Notice that the first point, there's a letter in front of it. So point A is what we're going to plot. So just remember when you're thinking about an ordered pair, X always goes first, followed by Y. Remember the X-axis, where all the X points are, that is the horizontal line. This vertical line right here is the Y-axis. So you always, when you're doing an ordered pair, move left and right first, followed by up and down. So since the first point is at -1, 9, from the center, which we call the origin, I'm going to move 1 over to the left and then 9 up. I'm going to plot a point. I'm going to call that then point A because that's the name of it. Now, in the box next to it, it says, what's the quadrant or the axis? Notice that that point is not on the y-axis. It's not on the x-axis. That means it's in a quadrant. Notice how the x and y axis break it up into 4 different boxes. Here in the top right, that's quadrant 1, and I write it with a Roman numeral number. I then go counterclockwise. So the second quadrant is over here on the top left. Down below on the top left is quadrant 3, and then quadrant 4 is down here on the bottom right. So since point A is inside the quadrant 2, that is where it's located. Point B, it's at -8, 0. Once again, remember, -8 is first. That's the x. So I have to go on the x-axis to -8. Since then it's 0, that means that I'm not going to move up and down. And so that point B is going to stay right there. So notice it is on the x-axis. So it's not inside of a quadrant, but it's on the x-axis. If I'm looking at point C, which is at 3, 5, so from the middle, I'm going to, which we call the origin, I'm going to go 3 to the right, and then I'm going to go 5 up. I'm going to plot my point. I'm going to call that point C. Notice how that is within the first quadrant. We then have point E over here at the top. We got 3, -8. So from the origin or the middle, we go over 3 to the right, and then down to -8, plot our point, that is point E. Notice that is within the 4th quadrant. If I am looking at point F, -1, -5, that means I want to move 1 over to the left and then down to -5. Point F is not on an axis, it's in a quadrant. Notice that it is located in quadrant 3. And then finally, if I have point G at 0, that means from here, I don't want to move left and right because 0 means we're not moving, but then I need to move down to -5. Plot that point, that's G. Notice that it is on the y-axis. All right, so that's just getting us refamiliarized with plotting some points. Now let's talk about graphing a line. So to graph a line, we want our equation in slope-intercept form. We call that y equals mx plus b. Notice that m, that's not going to really be there anymore. That's representing a number, but that m is going to equal what we call our slope. So anytime I'm asking for you to identify slope, that's what the letter m, or whatever is connected to the x, is going to be. B is represented then as the y-intercept. A y-intercept, while it'll just be a number in the equation, is really an ordered pair. Once again, the x-axis, or sorry, not the x, the y-axis is this vertical line. And notice that here, like my example, point G is on the y-axis. We would call that a y-intercept if it's on the y-axis. So we would always then have 0 to start with because I didn't want to move left and right if I want to stay on that y-axis. And then it would end up being whatever number that B was actually representing. And so we are going to be identifying our y-intercepts as ordered pairs. All right, so let's identify and explain what slope is. You've probably heard the terminology that slope is rise over run. Rise means that we are moving up and down. Run, think about running, you're running on the ground, you're moving left and right. Okay, so anytime we're talking slope, we are always going to have it as a fraction. So if you don't see a fraction, you can write it as over 1, and I'll talk about that more later. But we're always going to be moving up and down first, and then we'll move left and right. There are 4 different types of slope. There's positive slope, negative slope, 0 slope, and an undefined slope. Okay, so anytime you see a positive number to represent that letter M, that is going to then be a positive slope. And when we graph a line, a positive slope, you always read a graph going left to right. Notice how from the left heading towards the right, it's going up. It's heading up towards positive numbers. Negative slope means that that M value would be a negative number in front of the X. That means that we want our slope to be heading down, because once again, if we're reading the graph from left to right, when we head down, we're heading down towards negative numbers. A 0 slope means that we're going to have a line that isn't increasing and it isn't decreasing. It's staying the same the whole time. That means you want to have a nice horizontal line. So it's never going to change. It'll always constantly stay the same. A 0 slope means that you wouldn't even see a number in front of X because there wouldn't be an X because the number in front of X would be 0, and 0 times anything is 0. An undefined slope would look something like this. It would be a nice vertical line. All right. And so an undefined slope means that you would have a number divided by the number 0. And if you ever tried to divide by 0 in a calculator, it's going to say error because that's something that is undefined. So that's the lesson that I wanted us to review today. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me, which is Miss Rampella, or Miss Tolles, a Schoology message. And you do have a homework assignment, so please make sure that you do that. Have a good day.